It was one of the most dire moments of the Korean War. The U.S. 10th Corps found themselves trapped by Chinese forces at the Chosin Reservoir. Nearly 120,000 communist soldiers had the high ground, encircling 30,000 UN and American troops below. Yet, in the face of annihilation, Louis Burwell Chesty Puller, commander of the 1st Marines, liked his odds. To rally his men, Puller challenged them with the words, quote, "We've been hunting the enemy for a while. Now we're surrounded." That simplifies things. The 52-year-old Puller exemplified his motto, quote, "Old breed, new breed. There's not a damn bit of difference as long as it's the Marine breed." And now he was about to show the Chinese what Marines were really made of. Born a fighter. Even before he could sign his own name, Louis Burwell Puller was utterly captivated by the heroic exploits of America's past warriors. He grew up reading old veterans' tales of the American Civil War and admiring Thomas Stonewall Jackson. When the border war with Mexico erupted in 1916, Puller did everything he could to join the fight. He hungered to prove his worth in battle, but his youth and his mother's refusal to grant consent barred his path to the battlefield. Puller attended the Virginia Military Institute the following year, but he could not be held there for long. He was desperate to fight in World War I and left in 1918, claiming he wanted to, quote, "go where the guns are." The young man then enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, stirred by the valor of the 5th Marines at Belleau Wood. He persevered through the rigors of boot camp, but before he could taste combat, the curtain fell on the Great War, and his dreams of battle seemed to dissolve. Despite never tasting the grit of battle, his exceptional performance saw him ascend to the rank of 2nd lieutenant in the reserves. But fate dealt a cruel hand, and his hard-earned rank was stripped away when the reserves were slashed from 73,000 to a meager 1,100 officers in the war's aftermath. The ensuing years were marked by a deceptive calm, but Puller found his purpose during the U.S. occupation of Haiti. During one clever ambush on a raucous rebel camp, Puller maneuvered his men under the cloak of darkness as the enemy celebrated, arranging them into an ingenious L formation. Puller believed the rebels would scatter at his mounted men's first sound of gunfire, but as they fled, they ran headlong into the merciless fire from 3 Lewis machine guns strategically positioned on the camp's flank. That day, every enemy fighter met their end, and Puller emerged from the shadows, earning acclaim for his tactical acumen and commanding leadership. Banana Wars. After his successful campaign in Haiti, Puller finally reclaimed his rank as a 2nd lieutenant on March 6, 1924. However, this honor was tinged with disappointment as he was kept from the thrill of combat. Instead, he spent 4 years in domestic assignments across various Marine bases. But destiny had a different plan. In 1928, Puller was summoned back to the front lines and deployed to the heart of Nicaragua, a focal point in the Banana Wars, where he was put in charge of leading a force of fighters. However, despite the stripes on his uniform, Puller remained undeterred and stood shoulder to shoulder with his men on the front lines. This selfless approach won him the unwavering loyalty of his men, who executed a series of brilliant attacks between February 16th and August 19th, 1930. On one such day, Puller's patrol was advancing towards the village of Los Cedros when they stumbled upon a surprised force of Sandinistas nestled in the brush. As bullets whizzed past, Puller seized his only chance to turn the unfavorable situation in his favor and urged his men into a charge. Despite the hail of bullets and crude grenades thrown by the rebels, Puller and his guardia emerged unscathed, forcing the insurgents to flee in terror. They had unwittingly blundered into a rebel camp. Puller was awarded his first Navy Cross for his heroic acts during these operations. From ambush to victory. 2 years later, Puller and his patrol of 40 Guardia men, including Gunnery Sergeant William A. Lee, were ensnared in a brutal ambush in the mountainous north of Jinotega, where they were grossly outnumbered by a 150-strong insurgent force armed with automatic weapons. The battle that ensued was one of desperation and grit. Amid the chaos, Gunnery Sergeant Lee was seriously wounded and presumed lost. But even as his comrades fell around him, Puller maintained his composure and commanded his men with unshakable resolve. With exceptional courage and keen military acumen, he orchestrated a brilliant counteroffensive, driving the enemy from the advantageous high ground on either side of the position. The rebels were in disarray, suffering heavy casualties. Despite being heavily outnumbered and outgunned, Puller's unit emerged victorious, their losses limited to just 6 men. For his indomitable spirit and unyielding resolve displayed in the heart of the Nicaraguan jungle, he was awarded his 2nd Navy Cross. World War II. After his time in Nicaragua, Puller served in the Marine Detachment at the American Legation in Beijing, China, and aboard USS Augusta, a cruiser in the Asiatic Fleet. A decade of relative peace then unfolded, creating a lull before the storm that would become World War II. As the war in the Pacific escalated, Puller found himself deployed to Guadalcanal, ready to fight. He was soon at the epicenter of the Battle for Henderson Field, commanding the 1st Battalion, 7th Marines, one of 2 American infantry units, standing between a regiment-strength Japanese force and the Henderson airfield, a strategic jewel to maintain control over Guadalcanal. As such, the Americans mounted a desperate defense against the relentless onslaught of the Japanese forces, who were determined to seize the airfield at all costs. On the storm-laden night of October 24, 1942, Puller's battalion held a mile-long front. The lieutenant colonel not only held his ground, but also commanded the augmented force until late the next day, even after reinforcements arrived 3 hours into the brutal onslaught. His valiant efforts were vital in securing Henderson Field and earned him a 3rd Navy Cross. A year later, in the icy winds of December 1943, Puller led his men into the fiery Battle of Cape Gloucester. When the commander of the 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines was injured, he was thrust into leading a significantly larger force. Unflinching in the face of this challenge, Colonel Puller walked the line of fire, moving from company to company, rallying his forces, and maintaining a critical position along a fire-swept ridge. His selfless leadership in the face of danger earned him a 4th Navy Cross. Korea. After the war, Puller took on the role of executive officer of the Infantry Training Regiment at Camp Lejeune, and within a fortnight was appointed commanding officer. Then, at 52, Puller did not falter when the Korean War erupted, standing shoulder to shoulder with his men, sharing their battles, meals, and hardships. He took part in the brutal Incheon landing on September 15, 1950, with his courageous charge into heavily fortified enemy positions earning him the Silver Star Medal. But Puller's gallantry seemed to know no bounds, and he was eventually awarded a 2nd Legion of Merit and was bestowed with the Distinguished Service Cross from the U.S. Army. However, his most significant challenge lay ahead. From December 5th to 10th, while leading the 1st Marines' 1st Marine Division, the unit was ambushed and encircled by an overwhelmingly superior enemy force at what would come to be known as the Battle of Chosin Reservoir. As Puller rallied his men while being trapped, fatigued, and faced with freezing conditions, he said, quote, "We've been looking for the enemy for some time now. We finally found him. We're surrounded." That simplifies things. The defiant statement has since become a cornerstone of Marine lore, embodying Puller's indomitable spirit in the face of adversity. Against insurmountable odds, he not only held the line, but led his men to deliver severe blows to the encircling enemy, earning him a 5th Navy Cross. The decorated hero. Following the Korean War, Puller was promoted to Brigadier General and soon after ascended to Major General, taking command at the 2nd Marine Division of Camp Lejeune in North Carolina until his retirement. His men lovingly nicknamed him Chesty, a nod to his barrel chest that projected a confident and assertive stance. Tales among recruits suggested that Puller had a steel plate inserted in his chest following a war injury. While this was a playful myth, his men knew that the confidence in his posture was backed by one of the most outstanding service records in Marine history. Puller was more than just their leader. He was the most decorated Marine in U.S. history, a living testament to bravery and leadership.